My dad was one of the wisest people that I ever knew. I looked up to him. I actually cross-stitched a plaque for his wall that said, "A father is someone you look up to no matter how tall you grow." And that's just, I followed him since I have baby pictures of being right with Dad, no matter what he did or where he was. But as I grew up, I realized he was someone in our community that people looked up to. They would come to him, help me with this problem, or what would you do with this, or how do I handle this situation? And he served. He was a true servant. He was a servant in our church. Just people looked up to him there. He was a servant with the fire department. He would take young firemen under his wing, and I have a story that a gentleman on a neighboring fire department who is now works with fire equipment, he said the first time that he met my dad, they had stopped at a grass fire, and my dad said, "Grab a hose, boy, and help me," and that's how he got into the fire fighting line. But that's just who my dad was. He was very straightforward. You knew where he stood, but he knew everybody and just made friends with everybody. Never met a stranger. I would consider him the pillar of our community. Sometimes I got to ride in the fire truck one time as a little girl. He had to put gas in it or something, and diesel, I guess. And the smoke smell was horrible, so I didn't want to help Dad anymore at the fire station. But I will never forget that one time in, I believe it was January, there was a house fire, and that they were trying to fight the house fire, and as they shot the water to the house, it literally froze in midstream. And I'll never forget, my mom and I would go home, make hot chocolate, put it in all thermoses we could find to keep the firefighters warm, take hot chocolate back to the scene of the fire. So I guess we were the support group for the firefighters. The fire department was instrumental during Hurricane Katrina and the aftermath of that. The fire station was a place where they would bring in supplies and distribute from the fire hall, which our fire station, by the way, is named in honor of my dad, which happened 20, 30 years ago. So yes, he's been a long time honoree of that. So thank goodness before he passed, he was honored. I saw my father work very hard to make our fire department what it is. Our town is somewhere around 1,500 people, very small, but we also cover a rural area around our town. And I remember our old fire station was a cinder block, one room building that held one fire truck. It was not insulated, nothing. And my dad would go to meetings with the Pine Belt area where we're from in South Mississippi, to meet with other fire chiefs and try to work to get the 911 system in place, and to get insurance ratings lowered, and what are you doing in your department, in your area, what works there, and just to kind of coordinate so that when there is a fire, no one has a large enough department to man any one fire or accident, so they depend on each other. And he helped to be instrumental in putting that together years ago. My mom and I would go sit in the car, and she'd help me do homework while Dad was in the meeting, and things like that, just so we could kind of have some time together and everything. But the fire department is in my memory practically all my life. But he worked so hard, and he tried to build and help people see the need for firefighters and first responders, things like that. And now that he's gone, I see so many firefighters who want to live up to what he was and honor him and try to be like him and keep things progressing. I believe the fire rating in our town, in our fire district, was lowered since he's passed, because they continue to work for equipment and the things that are necessary. But I think he was kind of that unspoken silent teacher that led by example, and they just want to keep up that legacy and keep moving forward to honor him and to do what's best for our town. The one thing I would want people to remember about my dad is that he loved people, he loved his community, he loved to serve others. He loved his Heavenly Father and to serve in his church, and that was so important. He and my mom brought me up that way, and that's what's helping me to get through this in my life, and it's very evident, and I'm so thankful for the things that they taught me and made sure that I knew. You know, to me, he was one of these people that was larger than life in a way because of his character and his wisdom and his faith and his love. You know, he wasn't a touchy-feely kind of person. He wasn't ooey-gooey, mushy kind of person. But you just knew, you know, a slap on the back or shoulder, you knew that he cared about you. You were important to him. Even just to say hi to new people in town or at church, you know, you could tell he had a deep caring for others and wanted to get to know people, but there's no other person that I know of like him. And I know, you know, that sounds like, man, you're making your dad sound to be larger than life, but he was, and not only in my eyes. So many people have told me that since his passing, so it's good to know it's not just because I knew him as dad, but the community knew him as a person that was just someone to be admired. Absolutely. Could I share one more story that I had remembered that is one of my favorite fire stories? I called my parents the original 911 team because our phone number, our home phone number, was in the phone book as the fire department because there was no 911 system. So Dad would take the call in the middle of the night and he would get all the details. He would tell my mother what the details of the fire were, the address, house fire, car wreck, whatever. And then he would start getting dressed. She had the list of the volunteers, firemen, with their phone numbers, and she would start going down the list, relaying the details and say, meet at the fire hall or go to the scene, meet at the fire hall. Or go, you know, and one time, one funny story, she called one gentleman and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning and she said, there's a fire at this address, and he said, now? So, you know, to have to get up and go in the middle of the night, but like I said, they were kind of the original 911 team, and I just, that's a memory I'll always treasure. And it wasn't just my dad being the firefighter. My mom was such a support to him, and I'm grateful to have had that example of how she supported him and helped him.